Well, good morning. We're continuing with the resurrection of Lazarus in today's passage. As you know, Christ did ultimately raise him from the dead. He comes, and Martha and Mary and all are grieving because of the death of Lazarus. And he comes, and Jesus says in John chapter 11, verse 40, he said, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" And then he says, "Father, I thank you that you've heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me." And he said, "Lazarus, come out." And the man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, his face wrapped with cloth. And Jesus said, "Unbind him and let him go." That the one who was dead was now alive. I guess you could say this was almost a snapshot of what was going to happen shortly. That just as God in his grace and mercy through Christ had called Lazarus out of physical death, that God was going to allow Christ to die on our behalf, and then he would be raised to walk to newness of life, and then through that ascend to the Father and send his Spirit so that we could ultimately walk in newness of life as well. Well, as a result of the miracle, you know that the chief priests and the Pharisees were concerned, and they said this in verse 47 of chapter 11, "What are we going to do? This man has performed many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him." Boy, you really see the activity of Satan in this passage, do you not? That the last thing that Satan wants you or anyone else to see is the light and glory of Christ. The last thing that Satan wants anyone to know is that Christ is the only way to the Father. He wants you to think that there are other ways. He wants you to think that outside of belief in him, that you can possibly make your way in, that maybe you could do it through works, maybe you could do it through efforts, maybe you could do it through some other religion. And so the chief priests and the Pharisees have been blinded by that. And even though Christ is our only hope and their only hope, they're going to do anything they can to prevent other people from seeing that. And so it goes on, and it said, they say that if we're not careful, he will take away both our place and our nation. They didn't realize that Christ wasn't here to take away. Christ was here to restore. I hope you understand the significance of this today, that all of these miracles of Christ, they were done in broad daylight. The healing of Lazarus, the healing of the blind man, the healing of the invalid, the feeding of the 5,000, the turning of the water to wine. No matter how you cut it, Christ had proved himself to be who he said that he was. You know, perhaps today, do you know people that are outside of Christ? You know people that are lost? I encourage you, get them to read the book of John, because this book was written that they would believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and by believing they would have life in his name. I hope that you believe, and I hope that you will share your faith with others that they might believe today.